Now broadcasting the Dr. Nilda Business Foresight Show, positioning your business with strategies for an extraordinary future. Dr. Nilda features expert guests from diverse backgrounds to bring you their stories and strategies that have helped them reach their success. The diversity in industries gives you that panoramic view from an array of industries. They are innovators, thought leaders, trendsetters, and strategists. Here, Dr. Nilda reveals strategies that will position you to be on the cutting edge and be able to do what you love with the people you like, making the profits you want to live the lifestyle that you have dreamed of. And now, here's your host, Dr. Nilda Perez.
Hello, and welcome to the Dr. Nilda Business Foresight Show. And we have today a very special guest. And my guest, I feel like I've known him for a long time because when I was doing my dissertation, I read several of his books, which was on Latinos in business, Latinos in finances. And that was a very important topic to cover when talking about Latinos in business. So as a result, I feel like I've known him for a long time. So let me welcome Luis Barajas. Luis Barajas, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I want to read a little bit of your bio because your bio is very interesting. So Luis Barajas is the CEO of Wealth Management Lab. He was born in East Los Angeles and living an example of what he calls the American dream, which I love. He's worked hard. He's successful. He's had, successful businesses. He has, like most of us Latinos, a very rich and loving family life. And after some personal life events, experience at a major financial planning and accounting and consulting firms in South California. So Luis formed his own business management in 1991. Seems like such a long time ago, and it really wasn't. So his intention was to help hardworking men and women who, because of lack of information and understanding, they often made bad choices. So since then, he's created this special financial framework to help people who are inspired to create wealth and use their money to live a better life. He also helps those that have a more desire than money, but are committed to creating wealth to reach their full potential. His business management firm is the only Latino-owned firm that manages the businesses and the finances of some of the most iconic international recognized Latino celebrities. He's a multi-book author, which is how I met him. He is a speaker. He's well-known, featured in magazines such as Money Magazine, Senior Market, Hispanic Journal, mutual funds, Hispanic Business, and People in Español. So his books have been very important and very critical to me to understand where Latinos stand in terms of finances. And most of us, in all honesty, really don't know how to manage our finances. So welcome, Luis.
Well, it's my pleasure, Dr. Nilda. It's an honor to know somebody for so long, and for you to interview me. I woke up. Now I was out really late last night, but I was pretty giddy this morning, waking up and getting ready for this interview. So thank you for having me on your show.
I love it. I'm very excited to have finally feel like I met you in person. We definitely have to shake hands and hugs the way the Latinos do, right? Because I've known you for such a long time through your books, and it's amazing, right? Because when you read someone's books, you almost feel like you know them, and you brought such a critical piece to my dissertation. Oh. So I never really kind of understood, you always feel that, that in terms of finances and things like that, well, this is just my family. This is the way my family functions. But you've actually concluded that this is kind of widespread in the Latino community. And I think a lot of times the reason why this happened, and this is a hypothetical, but you're going to fix this, you're going to tell me, is because we feel that we have no money. So if we have no money, how can we possibly have a financial plan?
Right. Well, I call it the why bother serenade. It's years ago, 25, 27 years ago, when I left a big high-powered firm to come back to the barrio in East Los Angeles and help people, financial literacy was a huge issue, right? Because there was no financial literacy. But I realized financial literacy wasn't the issue. It was really a mindset, cultural mindset issue. And it was the why bother? Why do you bother to teach me this if I'm never going to have any money? So I think that's what you're alluding to.
Yeah, sort of, because so let me give you a hypothetical. In my family, my father always had businesses, always. And he had, at some point, he had several at a time. But I know that financial literacy was not something that they taught us. They taught us how to always have a little savings. They taught us about tithing, very young. They taught us about tithing, and they taught us hard work. But how to financially invest was never part of the lesson. And hence, when my dad got very sick, that was a huge pang financially on our family because he was the sole provider.
Right, and so, you know, sometimes even for Latinos who do make it, they're very entrepreneurial. But, you know, I wrote a book called Small Business, Big Life, right? The purpose of a business is to give you more life. And the problem with Latinos is that they're very entrepreneurial, but they create jobs for themselves. And if they're not there, they're not earning any income. And so part of the process of building wealth is, how do you build a business that can run without you being there? So if your dad would have gotten sick, you still would have received an income, right? Or his business would have been sellable, and there would have been equity for the family, so the family could have sold the business if he was still, let's say he would have gotten sick, but he hadn't gotten older and he couldn't work in the business. That business would have been sellable. So we just have to think a different way of how to structure what we already do naturally anyway in building wealth, so we can build that wealth that really is more for multi-generational wealth.
Right. And so with that said, how are you doing this to change that mindset? You know, for me, what's helped me is being surrounded by people that actually have wealth and that have taught me, well, look, you know what, you need to invest, and these are the things that you do, and this is how you do it. But for Latinos that are in that same environment, that are in the, still in the Latino environment, I know that right now, I don't know if you know her, but she's an amazing woman who is doing My Future, My Money, My Future. And she is teaching millennials about investment. And her focus is really minorities, because we're not really taught that. So that's now. How do we teach people that are not millennials how to do this?
Right. Well, first of all, the problem is with the financial planning industry, right? What happens is the financial planning industry is really product driven. And most of the people out there who are financial planners don't even have the background to teach this stuff. What they do, they have the background is to sell products. And so sometimes they're not preparing us. So what we need, and then the other people that are really successful in doing this don't have the time to come back and help the community out. And the people that, like you said you had access because you had an entrepreneurial father, you have other people around you that you know very well, you have access to people, but a lot of people in the bodies don't have that access to those people. No. So what I've been doing is by either speaking on a national platform through National Public Radio, through television, or writing books. Everything I write about, I write for my father, for my mother, but all the experiences that I have in working with all these wealthy individuals, right? I work with people who are underserved, don't have access. I work with people who are really wealthy, and constantly the conversations with the really wealthy is, hey, if I can simplify the information of how you got to where you got to, and take it to somebody like my dad who comes from Mexico, who's got immigrant here, who just wants a better life for him and his kids. How would we put that together? And that's what my books are. My books are, 20 years of experience of, and here, it's not, I'm not going to say it because it sounds terrible, like not dumbing down, but taking complicated stuff and make it very simple, but very impactful and very powerful, not only to give people hope, but to give them tools, right? So what I've started to do something different now that I've done before, like for example, on my Facebook page, I started putting a lot of my coaching material in there for free, which we never used to do. I'm an adjunct professor at East LA College teaching personal finance and investing, which is another way that I help out the community, to bring out warriors out into the community. But I provide all the coaching material. I do it in my class, besides the investment and the financial planning. So the goal, like what you're doing, what we're doing right now, having this conversation and putting it out to the world, somebody's going to watch it and somebody's going to tell somebody else. And then from there, they'll start looking at the material and reading it, and we'll start changing people's lives and people's finances.
I absolutely love it. I love it. See, because what I do, I'm a foresight strategist, which is basically I help people to position their business for the future.
Right.
What I'm finding in the Latino community is I can't afford it. I have that poverty mindset. So as a result of that, I was like, okay, so we need to teach Latinos, which is definitely not my strength. It's funny because a lot of people tell me, oh, you're a business, so then you do accounting. I don't do accounting. I don't do marketing. That's not what I do. I literally do business foresight, positioning the business for the future. But someone like you, a financial planner, who knows how to, and that's what I do with my programs, who knows how to simplify. I have a problem with dumbing it down also. So I get it. I get your point. Simplifying it, making it comprehensive. I learned that from working with our kids, where we would actually try to simplify things. And the more simple it was, the more they could conceptualize it. So we would, whenever we were teaching anything we taught them, what we would do was try to make it conceptual to something that they related to, because that's how I learned.
Right, and visual. So for example, what I did is that most of the clients that I have are minority entrepreneurs who start a business, who've never done a business plan, right? So the first thing they tell you is when you start a business, you do a business plan. But my experience is that 98% of most successful business owners have never done a business plan. Yep. So what I did is I created on the book Small Business Big Life, and I've got one for women, Small Business Big Life for Women, is a business blueprint. So it says, what happens if you've already, out of necessity, you've had to start your own business? How do you actually run a business? What does it look like? So I created a one-page document called the Business Blueprint, where we basically break everything into the core functions of a business, so people know what it's like. Because just because you know how to do something doesn't mean you know how to run a business that does that something. So everything I do, I said, it's in my head. One is I'm very visual. Most people are visual, and I want to show this is how you run your business. And let's take a look at the core concepts. But it's not a book. It's a one-page document. It's the same thing when we deal with finances. It's the one-page document. I'm into simplicity, but also impact, and also into execution. Because I used to be called a financial planner years ago, and I said, I'm tired of being a financial planner. I don't want to be financial. I want to be a financial doer. And that's what we're doing now. And so my whole shift, at least in my firm, is, let's not plan as much. Let's just plan a little bit, but let's do a lot more. So it's the execution. And how do you do the execution right?
Right, exactly. And that's really important. It's funny because in my program, because I have a curriculum that I also, that I kind of break this all down. One of my modules is literally it's execution, because you can have all the plans in the world, you can have everything in place, and it looks beautiful, great. This is what I want to do. This is how I want to do it, but never actually execute. And that really at the core, if you don't execute, you've done nothing. So some people waste the time that you spent on the planning without executing. So I actually give them action plans, checklists, all that, because it really is critical. It's critical to actually making things happen. So I totally agree. Totally.
Here's a quote of the day. So I always say, thinking determines what you want, action determines what you get. I say that all the time. Thinking determines what you want, but action determines what you get. But you need to know how to take that action. And the problem with, again, most people listening to us, it's how do I take that first step? Because once they take that first step, you've already got some momentum, right? But they don't know which step to take. Like, how do I start and where do I start my business? And sometimes people are thinking 5-10 steps ahead, and they get overwhelmed with what they have to do. We have to chunk everything down and say, what's the first step, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree. So I'm a kinesthetic learner. I need to see, I need to hear, I need to see, I need to do. So, and it's amazing. Don't ask me how it works, but if I write something down, I'll remember it years later.
Wow.
So, yeah, I'll remember it years. I could lose a piece of paper. It doesn't matter. But something about the writing it, and I remember it was really bizarre, but that's how I went through college. One day I was like, I would read the book and I would highlight it, and it did nothing for me. So I started writing stuff down. then that's when the color Post-its came out. And I was like, oh my God, I love this. And in my car, Louis, I literally had like different colors for the different questions or the different aspects of the class. And when I had to study for a test, that's how I do it. So I'd sit in the class and I'd close my eyes and I'm like, on the right side. Oh, and I aced the test. I aced the test. Yeah. So this is basically what you and I are doing, is that we're offering people the audio, the visual, and the kinesthetic, where they actually have action plans that they can actually follow, so that this way it's more broad and you can actually reach people where they're at.
Right. The only and it's, you know, the experience, we offer the experience because we've been doing it for so long. The other thing to keep in mind though is that even though people know what to do and you've given them what to do, you still have to give them the mindset to be able to believe that they can do it and that they can do it within. It's almost that focus of, or that is they call it the loci of control, where it's internal. You have to believe that you can do it. Not that somebody else did it, but that's not me. And if you can believe that you can do it and that somebody's already done it and wants to give you the steps because they feel so blessed, right? That's how I've always felt. I've been blessed beyond belief. I don't know why. I've always, my life has not been perfect. I've had some tragedies in my life, but I've always been blessed. And I always feel like the right people always show up at the right time. And I always feel like I need to help people who didn't have that access, like my parents. I always put myself in their shoes. What was it like to come from, they came from Mexico with not even a penny, right? And how did they make it here? And how did they do it? And if they would have had access to resources, where would they be now? So that's what's constantly so, and I find that sometimes with even having the right material, the people will self-sabotage, right? They sabotage themselves into not having, or when they get comfortable, start having a certain level of success, they sabotage themselves and then bring themselves where they feel comfortable. The goal is to figure out how we can teach them that abundance is okay, that making money is okay, that making lots of money is okay. Because sometimes culturally, we believe that, and unconsciously we believe that money is bad. And for some reason, we unconsciously stop ourselves from being and living an abundant life.
Right. It's funny because, again, I did my dissertation on this, and one of the areas that I touched upon was the fact that, namely Latinos, we come from that religious background, that we all came from that Christian, Catholic, that Christian background. And what is the first thing that they teach? Humility.
Right.
I'm sorry, I went right into Spanish there. But the truth is that humility is not poverty. There is a difference. And so, of course, everything I do, what I did is that I researched, and I'm like, okay, in the Bible, when God blessed, he blessed people with abundance. Right. But we have it's for us is like, it's the opposite. Like, we believe, well, you need to be poor. I had somebody here was, again, I was coaching someone, and they were like, I just want to live well. I want to live comfortable. I don't want to be rich. And I'm like, why not? Oh, that, we can't ask for that. And I'm like, yes, we can. Right. And so I'm with you in terms of that mindset, but that I believe that mindset comes from our religious beliefs, that we're taught humility is being comfortable, not asking for more than you need. But the more that you have, the more you can do to help those that can't.
Right. I'm gonna switch a little bit on you gears, because one of the things that I see when I'm working with a lot of people is that, and some people that have built wealth, is that their financial foundations are very weak. And so again, I've seen a lot of people who've done very, very well, made lots of money, actually made millions of dollars, and lost everything. And again, it's because they're not focused on the right things. Like, for example, not thinking that money is good for you. But what I want for somebody to listen to us today, when we talk about more specific money tips, imagine that they're going to build this house. You probably need about maybe 12 to 18 inches of foundation, right? And to build a house, that's all you need. If you're going to build a 2-story house, the foundation may be a little bit deeper. And if you're going to build a 4-story building, maybe a little deeper. But a rascacielos, a skyscraper, it's a very profound, very deep, shallow foundation. Mm-hmm. And so when we think about that, I need every person that's listening to us to say their foundation is a lot of different things, but it's also, besides being having an estate plan, a will or a trust if they've got kids. It's besides having life insurance if they have kids, just getting term insurance, besides starting to put some money away for an emergency reserve, but it's also their ethics, right? It's also who they are when they're building all this stuff. It's not just the financial side of it as well. Because the thing is that to build wealth, we need to save. As a community, we need to save. Because I'm tired. For 26 years, we keep saying, when I started, the Latino population was 14%, then it went to 15%, then to 16%, then to 17%. And we spend close to 1 trillion, then 1 trillion, then over 1 trillion we spend. But the problem, tell me about how much we have saved. Tell me how much power we have. Because the problem, as you now know in this economy, is the wealthy, the people who actually have access to capital are who are running this, the United States. And so we can continue to grow as a population and the demographic continues to grow. But if it continues to be in poverty, then we don't have there's no power, right? And there's the recent study that just came out maybe about a couple months ago that said that in the next 20 to 30 years, African Americans and Latinos will have a negative net wealth, right? And so we're going backwards. And so this, to me, everything we're talking about, even though we're talking about the abundance, whatever, really is something that we now need to really start focusing on at a higher level, because I think there's more people who are awake. There's more people who are now conscious to the fact that as for minorities, we need to focus on building wealth. And wealth starts with savings, but it also makes sure that you have life insurance for your family. You have this. And again, I don't sell anything, right? One of the things that I think to tell people is I don't make a dime in commissions or referral fees. My job is to say, but how do you plan for that? And where do you get that? And how do you not pay commissions? And how do you make the most of it? Because we don't have a lot of money. How do you leverage my dollar to get the best for my family to build that financial foundation? There's a lot of topics we can talk about, but that's my core, what I've been focusing lately on, when I've been teaching or speaking out there.
Right. I love that. Now, I know that you also do a lot of this, a lot of work with famous international Latino celebrities. How do they think different? How are they different from the everyday Latino?
Yeah. So it's interesting, right? Because I started writing books, I did a commercial over a decade ago. One of the actresses on the commercial was married to a guy that worked at Sony, and then all of a sudden he became the president. And then I started working with Latin celebrities, and it's just mushroomed. And now I have some of the most iconic Latin celebrities. We have a big team here that handles all that. And when I'm having dinner or lunch or breakfast, or we're at their house, we're talking, and when I'm listening to them, I love to listen to people and really see where they're coming from. They're really big dreamers. They're what they aspire is huge, right? They have these big dreams. They don't shoot for the stars. They shoot, for the planets out there. So it's that conversation. And then the second thing that I've constantly learned from working with celebrities is that they're good at building teams. They have a manager, they have an agent, they work with their attorney, they have their business manager. And I've always said that you can't be successful unless you have, a dream team, a team that you have. And so you always want to surround, we were talking about, you want to surround yourself with great people. In Spanish, or even, dime con quién andas y te diré quién eres, right? Tell me who you are, I'll tell you who you're hanging out with, I guess. They build these teams. And most people on their own feel like they don't want to ask for help. They don't want to pay for help. And they think they can do it themselves. Or they don't want to bother you to ask you a question. Oh, I knew you were busy. I don't want to bother you. The celebrities or the people that are aspiring to do big things, they'll pick up the phone, they call you, hey, I need your help. Who do you know that can put me together with that person so we can make this thing happen, right? They're very good at networking and connecting people together.
Okay. And so that's where you find that there's the difference, that they're more apt to ask questions, to ask for help, and to pay for help.
Ask and pay for help, and at the same time just dream big. So their plans are very aspirational. Where instead of they're thinking about they don't even think about sometimes an emergency reserve. It's almost like the assumptive they're just going to have it, and they just plan for it. It's almost like they bring it in their reticular activating system, right? They put it in their mind, it's a focus. And, this law of attraction or whatever you call it, it's almost like they seem to will and bring that energy to them and bring the people to them. The problem is that some people, because they're so busy and they're so creative, remember, artists tend to be very right-brain people, right? They're not very logical thinkers. Right. And so sometimes, they don't pay attention to their finances. And so they get ripped off. Sometimes, you hear stories about these famous athletes or professionals who got ripped off by somebody because they tend not to put that focus on there. And then they tend to be bigger targets of people who are financial predators. So that's the only thing that sometimes we have to watch out for. But that's really the core. The other thing is this. They're some of the hardest working people I've ever met. I'm telling you right now, when you see celebrity and they're up there, or you see a superstar singing and it seems so easy and their lifestyle must be really great, they're not. Their lifestyle is great, but they are working like you cannot believe. They put years and effort. It wasn't like, I want to go out there and make $1 million overnight. There is no overnight. There is no lotto syndrome. There is none of that. I got it. Like, what can I do to make $1 million? What do I do to come out of college and be the owner or get paid like the owner of the company in the next week or two? They don't do that. They started from the ground. They worked their butt off. They studied. They put a lot of effort in, and it takes years to be really successful. So I think people sometimes don't really understand that. They think there's an overnight success and they've just made a lot of money very quickly. That doesn't happen.
And I love that you talk about that, because that's usually what I find. A lot of times when I talk to people, they're like, okay, so if I do this, is it going to be like quickly? Like, how quickly can I get my ROI? And I'm like, anything that's worth it is not quick.
Yeah.
I mean, selling drugs, if you want to make quick money, but you don't want to do that. So the reality is that fast money and that instant gratification, becoming instantly wealthy. I'm so glad that you touched upon that, because you know what? That is such a farce. Right. Everything is hard work, staying focused, and being able to work hard in the different areas. And I say that because of this. What I find is that oftentimes we put a lot of time into operations, making the business function, but we don't take the time to analyze our finances. We don't take the time to I always do at the end of the year, like an annual review of my goals. I divide it in 4 areas: personal goals, business goals, financial goals, which is different than the business goals, and my personal. So I divided in those 4 different areas, and spiritual. So I divided in those 4 different areas very consciously, because I set goals in the beginning of the year. And at the end of the year, I want to know how far I came in meeting those goals. So you can't be like tunnel vision, and you can't put all of your energy and put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak. Like, you don't want to spend all of your energy in just operations and making your business function, and not pay attention to the finances, and not pay attention to your family, and not pay attention to, spirituality, whatever that is for you. So does that make sense? And that's
absolutely, because what you're doing is basically what we talked about, right? You're working on your business, working on your life versus working in it, right? The day-to-day stuff, when you wake up and brush your teeth and take a shower, whatever, that's working in your life. When I'm answering phone calls, talking about, that's working in my business. But working on is, I take a day off. I take every quarter to strategize. Where am I at? How close am I getting to my goals? Absolutely. I know I can't, but if I could change my direction or meet this person, that's strategic thinking, right? And you're right. Let me just share with you, because when I meet clients, especially if I'm doing business consulting, and they say, can you help me turn my business around? I said, you know what? Yes. What's it going to cost me? I'll give them a certain price. And he says, well, how long do you think we're going to take that I can turn my business around? I think we could do it within the next couple of years. I think you're going to be where you need to be. We can make some quick changes, but it takes about a year, and then it takes, then we start implementing. Go, I can't, if I pay you, we can't make this like in about 6 weeks, a month. I can't turn my business. Well, you've had your business for a decade. You've kind of not grown for a decade. It takes time. And then they won't sign up because they wanted that quick fix, that instant gratification. And then I'll see them again 3 to 5 years later, and guess where they're at? In the exact same place when I saw them, 5 years before. And in those 5 years, we could have made tremendous transformation. It takes time. You don't go get a PhD in six, you don't pay a college to go get a PhD in 6 weeks.
No.
It's a tremendous amount of work. There's, you got to do dissertation. You got to do a lot. I mean, it's just a lot of work. And I go back to the same thing with the business. It's a constant and never-ending process of improving, getting better. Economies change, business demographics change, type of businesses you've been working at. Like you said, you're the expert in a foresight. Well, if you're talking to somebody that does, graphic design, and you were talking to 5 years ago, that business has changed 5 years later. I mean, completely different business. That business model, you have to prepare for that change, right?
Absolutely.
So there's constant never-ending improvement. And again, you got to stay, I always say, keep one eye on the future. And that's what you do. You keep that eye on the future for your clients, and then one eye on the now. Like, don't forget that you got a business and you got to take care of your clients, but you got to keep that eye on the future. And sometimes you need somebody like you or like me to pull you out, and so we can talk about the future. Otherwise, you'll never be there because you have intentions to talk about the future, but you never will.
Right.
You're too busy. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that is really where the problem is. For most people, they want the instant gratification. They want, the quick here and now. And I think we're kind of programmed wrong. We're programmed to believe that things happen instantly and that stars become stars because they want to, and then they just become a star. And we don't realize all of the hard work that there is. And, and I think when people, that's why higher education to me is so important, that you realize that it takes consistency. And even when you finish that degree, you don't get out, you don't get out of college, or you don't get out of a master's program or doctoral program and instantly become, create wealth. Right. It takes consistency. It takes you becoming an expert. After you learn, I always tell people, that's where you get your theory. That's where you get your tools. It's how you put those tools into practice that's going to make all the difference. Because if you walk out and you stay in the same job and you don't learn anything more and you do the same thing, that degree served you no purpose. Right. So, and that's with everything. And I love the fact that you're saying, you're right, 3 years later, they're still in the same place, but they refuse to wait a year. And the thing is that it's not that you wait a year to become, so to speak, wealthy, but it takes a year for you to start building. So, for you to start seeing a difference. But in that year, you're seeing small, consistent change, small, consistent progress. Right. It just takes a year for you to realize, like, wow, and that's why the projections are so important.
Yeah. So I know we don't have a lot of time left, but can I bring up just a couple things for people who are listening about money? Yes. And how they're approaching money? Yes. Okay. I want people, when they sit down with anybody who's an advisor, to be very conscious of the fact of whether that person who's giving them advice is really looking for their best interest versus trying to sell a product. Because let me just share with you how we've been doing a lot of the planning.
Love that. Yes.
So I've got a lot of kids, and we're talking about a little bit about education. So what's happening is when a person sits in front of an advisor to do college funding planning, right, is they'll try to sell them a 529 plan. When I'm sitting down with a client that has a 13-year-old child, I don't show them which investments to invest in that 529 plan. I talk to them, where's your child? Are they A students, B students, C students, D students? On the scale of 1 to 10, 1 having no self-esteem to 10 having high self-esteem, where are they at? I ask the parents if they've been to college and have any college, experience. Because those things make a big difference. Because if somebody comes to me and they say, look, Louis, we have about $200 a month that we can start saving for my kids' college fund, I'll say, great. But if I find out that their kids are C students, the parents have never been to college, kids have low self-esteem, I would rather take that money and invest it in a self-confidence program for the kid, in tutoring or mentoring for the kid. I'd want to have the money spent for they can travel to a college, the parents with the kids, so they can be taught what an experience is like. So we have to be careful about how we use money to leverage to create the highest and best social impact, right? The other thing we want to talk about when we're sitting down looking at retirement planning for couples, for example, I'm sitting down, I'll ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being where your marriage sucks, to 10 is you have the most incredible marriage. Where is your marriage? You know, most men are pretty much clueless. They'll tell me they're at level 8. I've had women tell me they're at a level 5. And I say, well, where do you have to be to thinking about divorce? They say at a level 4. And I said, oh my goodness, if I took their money to put into a 401k or retirement plan, I would basically be saving it for the divorce attorney, right? Sometimes the highest in social impact is you say, you know what, that money is best used. Let's work with a marriage therapist. Let's invest that to get your family strong. And then we'll start putting money for your retirement. So we need to start thinking in a completely different way about how we're using money. The same thing with you is for something is that, you know, you said, Louis, I've got $1,000. Where should I invest it? If I really knew you well, Dr. Nila, and you said, Louis, if I knew that you needed to go to the next level and it would be this conference in Switzerland or Europe, and maybe that would be the best investment, because that investment would create a lot more opportunities for you, for your career, for your business. So we need to start thinking and not get lost in the world of product and say, well, I've got this much money right now, and what's the highest and best impact, social impact for me, for my family. And so sometimes the people that I work with see that money as an expense versus an investment. An expense is not the marriage therapist. It's an investment. An expense is not the college tutor. It's an investment. You know, when I tell people there's this great book that I just read, you need to read it. It's going to change your life. I read 100 books a year. I read 2 books every week consistently. But they'll ask me, some people will ask me, well, how much is the book? And I go, are you kidding me? Whatever the book, if you got a book that's going to cost you $100 or $10, buy the damn book, because it's going to change your life. Wow. So we need to start thinking about what's an investment versus what's an expense, and how do we use money to create the greatest impact in our lives.
I absolutely love that. And you know what? Because that is the truth. I am so glad that I chose you for my dissertation, because I made the right choice. I knew it. I love this because it's such a fact. And this is the struggle that I have often with people. Oh, how much is the course? How much is it to sit with you? How much? Oh, that's expensive. I'm like, to be honest with you, it's actually priceless, because what this is going to do for your mindset, for your business, for how you're going to start looking at your business is literally going to change your life. Right. Because I think I know for a fact, when you start thinking futures, you start applying that to everything. And I find that I look at life completely different. And my clients have told me the same thing. I just don't see life the same way. When I see things, I look at, wow, maybe that's something I could apply to my job. To my business? How can I change that or structure that to fit what I do? And it's just well-rounded. So I love that, because that really is, at the end of the day, that's the point. So here's where I know we need to end, and this is where I want to end. I want you to give me 3 points on money that people can start using immediately.
Okay, so whenever you're going to invest with money, the very first thing is you say, what am I going to be using the money for, and when am I going to need the money? Okay, so it's not about like, do I invest in a stock? It's like, is it for education fund, but for how long? If it's long-term, you want to invest in equities, right? If it's short-term, you want to make sure you have emergency reserves that's very liquid, like in a savings account, even though they're not paying anything. So the best financial planners are going to ask you, what's the goal? And then how long is the goal? What's the time horizon? That's the most important thing. Second thing right now is when you're going to work with, ideally, I love people to work with other coaches, get financial coaches. You need to ask them for their credentials and how they're getting paid. You don't want to work with somebody that's getting paid on commissions, or they have really high fees, or they're using products that have really high fees, because those will eat all your returns up, and you will not see really much money down the road. So ask for people's credentials and how they're getting paid. That's on the real nitty-gritty stuff. The third thing is really take a look at and start listening to other people's conversations about money, and become conscious about how maybe you might be sabotaging your own. Have conversations with your family. Don't make it a taboo. Talk to your kids about money. Talk to your friends about money. What are they doing? How are they doing? How they feel? Is it working for them or not? Conversations about money, to feel comfortable about talking about money. In the neighborhood that I live in, I've got 8-year-old kids outside talking about mutual funds. Where I grew up, nobody still knows what a mutual fund is. So be comfortable with the conversations about money.
Okay, fantastic. I love that. So I want to thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're a very busy man and you do a lot and you're a very busy person. So I want to thank you for coming on the show. And I think money is a very important topic for us to discuss with our people, because it's important. You don't only work with Latinos though, you work with pretty much anyone, right? And we're going to put all of your information. We're going to follow up with all of the information at the end of the show so that people can contact you directly if they want. And definitely read your books. You have about 6-7 books out there, right?
Well, I've got five books out. I'm writing the 6th book right now, When Financial Disasters Strike, because I've had a lot of people who have had disaster and weren't prepared. So how do you handle those? That book will be out in the spring of 2018. I'm working really hard on that book right now.
Okay, fantastic. So Luis Barajas, I want to thank you. We're going to Rachel is going to make sure that your information is put up, or for your books and the links to your books. Your books are fantastic. I have to tell you, if you can't see Luis Barajas, you definitely have to read his books because his information is unbelievable. So I want to thank you so much for being here. I know you're busy and I love the fact that you took the time to talk to me and to speak to my audience who really wants and needs this information. So thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Okay. All right, guys. So I want to thank you for being here again for another show of the Dr. Nilda Business Foresight. And in the meantime, we will look forward to seeing you next week, and where I'll have yet another amazing visitor, another amazing guest that's going to be here with us. Okay. Bye, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Dr. Nilda Business Foresight Show. You can hear Dr. Nilda every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time and anytime on demand on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. For more information on the featured guest, go to www.drnildaperez.com/show.